Bob and Kel CleverCast for the week of November the 16th bids a happy birthday and many happy returns to Kelly Lee Gradke.
Oh, thank
It
you.
seems like just only the other day he was gathering with other St. Cloud trained chronic inebriates celebrating his 50th in Las Vegas around an enormous tower full of Don Julio 1942 tequila. Is this your 51st? Was that in fact last year that you
Yes,
celebrated
51.
the nice round number in Las Vegas?
Right. 50 means something, 51 not so much. So no Vegas.
Explain the wall art behind you, please. I recognize the Abbey Road setting. What are the visuals that are flanking it?
Cheap Thrills by Janis Joplin and Holding Company, Big Brother.
Yep.
And then this is an autographed Badfinger. I think it's maybe even their last album.
Okay.
Called Say No More. Joey Molland autographed it.
Pete Ham and Badfinger have a Beatles connection too, especially with Paul McCartney. That reminds me, Netflix just recently started hosting a documentary called Squaring the Circle about a company in the 60s and 70s that made album cover art for bands like Pink Floyd and a number of others of that ilk during that era. So I would recommend that to you. This edition of the podcast is brought to you by, once again, Gaza Strippers, providing the Palestinian community with quality exotic dancing since Israel became a state in 1948. Which reminds me, first 50 people through the door tomorrow night for TGI Shabbos receive a copy of Jewish Currents magazine. This is the official editorial arm of the New York-based Palestinian-leaning left, Jewish left, and you can what does it sell for at the newsstands? $18 if you're shopping. If you're at a kiosk, let's say the Strand kiosk in Central Park, that's what you'll pay. Free tomorrow night, first 50 people through the turnstiles at Gaza Strippers. And for Thanksgiving next weekend, they ruled the adult actress scene in the 60s and 70s. Now they're just bent over little Jewish ladies, and they put together their own USO tour to entertain the legit Israeli Army IDF troops. They are Christy Canyon, Veronica Hart, Hypatia Lee, and Ashlyn Gear. And all four of them will be at
Put them all together and they spell?
Will be at Gaza Strippers collecting $1 tips and their expanding waistbands 1 week from tomorrow night at Gaza Strippers.
I gotta think big names like that pull in more than a dollar a G-string.
Yeah, in this day and time, it's got to be more. Oh man, that reminds me. I don't know what got into me, but with this tech, I just look up anything in a moment's notice. I'm thinking, because I still had the figure in my head, it was the most money I ever made was when I worked for KSTP. And so I ran it through the Google currency calculator machine, and I was making back then the equivalent today of $412,000 a year.
Wow.
That is why I say, after every show we would go, we faked our way through another 3 hours. They still got to pay us. And they did. Wow. $412,000 was the equivalent, would be the equivalent today, what I was making back then. Okay. Oh, I can now, I think, divulge my Twitter handle. I don't know how I came by this Twitter handle. If anybody wants to follow me on Twitter, you can. We address pretty much the same mundane subjects on X or Twitter as we do on the podcast, and that would be this. It's of course the @ sign. You got to have that. Bob, B-O-B, and then it gets robotic on you. 383-05676. That's @ Bob, B-O-B, 383-05676. and that'll get you through to subjects like who are you picking tonight, Bengals or Ravens? Bengals or Ravens? I've decided to take Bengals in the 3.5 because Lamar Jackson has never done anything for me. Kel, did you just fart? You look
No,
like you leaned over on your left cheek and farted. Why the St. Vitus dance all of a sudden?
I'm
Why
just
all
getting,
the head? Why all the headroom all of a sudden?
I don't know. I'm getting comfortable.
Okay. Bengals or Ravens? Predictions, please. Even Teller, Penn and Teller, in the studio there can offer his prediction if he likes.
I'm going to go Bengals just because I don't think they can. They've been playing very well lately, and I don't think they'll lose 2 in a row.
Okay.
Ravens. I'll go Ravens.
Okay. I think there are adequate arguments to be made on behalf of either team. But I hate to say goodbye to the Bengals so early in the season. They would be 5-5 if they lost. You'd have to run the table to be 12-5 and get any kind of seed for the playoffs.
Such amazingly, it's just mild quarterback play. It's just weird. Like Josh Allen can't throw a good pass to save his life. His team is 5-5. Jalen Hurts, Pat Mahomes, they don't look like themselves. It's just a weird year for quarterbacks. So many are hurt.
Even the ones that used to be dominant a few weeks ago are now mere mortals.
Right.
And they're being surrounded by the largest number of ugly teams I've ever seen in the NFL in my lifetime. It's terrible. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who never score, are magically 6-3. How does that happen?
What about, isn't Cleveland 6-3 as well? I mean, that's just a butt ugly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And now, what's even more opening is the fact that Deshaun Watson will be able to spend the rest of the NFL season on the kind of massage table that you just came from. You just had a birthday massage by some handy, grabby Asian lady, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, she did. She rubbed me all over. She was actually rubbing my butt for a long time too. She loved me long time.
And what are there certain muscle arrangements in the derriere that
gluteus maximus, as they say. But
yeah,
the weird thing is she had to get up on the table, and basically, as my head was down, she was straddling the back of my head as she was massaging the buttocks. So
yeah.
What's the proper term? What do you typically use for that part of the anatomy? Do you say ass? Do you say butt? Do you say cheeks? Derriere?
Could be fanny, could be tail, could be rear end. Could be business end, buttocks,
anus.
I don't know. Did you ask her just out of curiosity that if she was still in the neighborhood, she might run one or more fingers up your bum just to heighten the experience?
I did wonder about that. I always wonder about happy endings and such, and it's just like, how does a person? I mean, I wouldn't, but how would you broach that? Like, it's just like throw a couple more dollars on the table.
Well, to return to my original point, Deshaun Watson somehow has a system of talking to these people, and the same thing with Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, who on Super Bowl Sunday, on his way to the ballpark, stopped at an Asian massage parlor and had his 78-year-old rod handled in a hour-long lead up to a happy ending. 78 years old. Take that.
How many more professional sports owners could you imagine getting a routine massage with a happy ending? Jerry Jones, he's on that list.
No, he's the first I thought of and the first I eliminated.
Oh, really?
The competition. Yeah. So was that a treat yourself kind of birthday luxuriation celebration?
It was a little half birthday, half my shoulder's been acting up, so I wanted to get the kinks knocked out, as it were. So
have you ever been to a chiropractor?
I have been going quite a few weeks now, and I've had no luck, so that's why I decided to massage.
I felt I got free adjustments from a chiropractor I was dating back in the day after the divorce, as luck would have it, given the tenor of this conversation, she was the person who introduced me A, to vodka, and to B, the joy experienced only by her of anal sex. So that's the connection of the two images or philosophical camps here
Wow.
that we're grazing upon in conversation. Yeah, I'm amazed at I'm fascinated by the connection between the professions of the women I've known in that way and the women themselves. That was a chiropractor. When after my first adjustment or two, man, I played tennis the next day and I felt I could play all day long. It
Yeah.
released so much energy in my body. I scoffed. I thought, oh yeah, I'll just go in there and she'll beat me up and get her jollies that way. It was not that way at all. It was very scientific, and I was no longer a skeptic after that. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm still kind of a skeptic because my pain still lingers, but I don't know. Cracking necks, cracking backs, and then laying on a table. I don't know. I want to see results.
I'd gone so many years without an adjustment that I could actually hear it. The term
Oh,
is zippering. It
oh,
was zippering the I don't know, vertebrae or something like that. We're also brought to you by Hamlin and McGill, attorneys at law of Albuquerque.
nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
Wait, what came first, the cup or you watching the show?
The show and then the cup.
Okay,
The
nice.
cup would have meant nothing without the show, right?
I don't think so, but it looks pretty well used, and you just finished watching the show.
Yeah, I slurped coffee all over it. I really abused the coffee cups. I need another prediction, please, from both of you, because we're hearing leaks. They've not been published, but we're hearing leaks about what will be the outcome of the toxicology report, the autopsy, what have you, for the late Matthew Perry. And I'm wondering whether you project that this was a heart attack followed by a drowning, or was it an overdose of a recreational drug and a drowning? What
Hmm.
is your prediction? What do you think the findings will reveal?
Well, as they say, once an addict, always an addict. But I like to think the best in people. So let's hope he didn't falter and it was just his previous life of drugs caught up with him, and that's the heart just stopped.
So I have you down for Bengals and heart attack, and
Yes.
let's go to
Can I
let's go
can I
to.
can I put them together in a parlay?
Oh boy, I don't think they'll take that. I mean,
Not
you
at
could ask.
not at Palace Station, they won't.
No, they won't. Yeah, they'll read you the riot act for that.
Gosh.
Are the numbers up yet for heart attack and Bengals? Oh no, we're not offering that tonight. So Kurt, the Ravens fan here, let's see what he thinks. Kurt, heart attack or drugs?
I'm going to go for prescription drug overdose.
Ooh,
It
Interesting.
that's kind of
might be an opiate or something he was prescribed and he overdid it. That's my conspiracy theory.
After all of his brushes, none of them positive, with all kinds of drugs. Why anyone would prescribe him anything is beyond me. My only frame of reference for this is Philip Seymour Hoffman, who stayed away from heroin for 22 years, and then one day had some time on his hands and thought, the hell, trip down memory lane. Let's go. Wonder where my dealer is. I wonder if he's still alive. And by the end of the day, he'd relapsed. He'd mainlined. He didn't know when to say when, and he assumed room temperature. They just it's never out of your system. I think tar and nicotine are equally fascinating an addiction. As we I hope established with Jim Leinfelder last week, anything can be made a habit in the human body. I remember to this day very vividly an interview on Bill Buckley's firing line. Yes, the same Bill Buckley who turned up in a dream of mine last night. More on that later. He was interviewing a sociologist named Thomas Saz, Szaszz, who said that in that interview, I remember making mental note of it, retaining it to this day, that anything can be made a habit. that if you want to make a habit of every day at 10 a.m., doing this or that, you can do that. And after a certain amount of time, you won't be able to stop doing it. And I just have a feeling that Matthew Perry, who just look, could not be pleased, no matter how perfect any facet of his life was. And it's the constant need for the bigger and bigger high, to the point where, what, 6 operations on the stomach alone, 60 Vicodin a day, a burst colon. You know the litany of unhealth there. It was just, to me, the reason for this death is the reason, and sometimes you read about this in the paper. Someone will be shot, or will be beaten, or will be just gnawed down to the within an inch of their lives, and they'll be kept alive in the hospital for like a week or two, and then you find then it comes out that they've died of injury sustained in a car wreck or something like that, right? That's what this was to me. That his memoir should have been titled "Abuse Your Body as I Have, and You Have a Year to Live,"
Right.
because isn't that pretty much how long he lived after the writing of the book, the publication of the book?
I mean, I always wonder about stuff like that. Like, how many times have people written books and then it comes out? Well, most of the time it's movies. Somebody puts out, like, I think Ray came out, and then a couple weeks later he was gone. So it's like, do people know the writing's on the wall, and they better get their act, their play, their book out there before.
I admire him for doing it himself, and not giving his story over to the publishing industrial complex, and telling it from the heart and inspiring so many people. Hopefully that will be his legacy. I never saw 30 Seconds of Friends. I never saw 30 consecutive seconds of Friends. The only thing I ever saw him in was an Aaron Sorkin vehicle called Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip.
Very good.
That's the only thing I ever saw him.
So Friends was a never for you. Literally.
Pre-Never Never. Yeah, before I was laying the law down about nevers.
Right.
That was one of them, yeah. And it is to this day. I still have no interest in going back and catching up on what he did. I'll take everybody's word for it that he was an excellent natural comic, but I don't know whether he inherited this perfectionist streak. Is this true that he was so zonked at one stage in his life that a woman comes up to him and says, I forget what you say to someone who has stupidly proposed marriage to you and can't remember it later. But supposedly he did that. And the woman comes up to him and reminds him of it, and he says, "I'm sorry, I don't remember proposing marriage to you." When it gets that bad, something is wrong, and a shrink or a team of them needs to step in and say, why can't you be happy with more than $1 million a week, 26 weeks a year? Why can't you be happy with the home at Sarah Retreat, just off Pacific Coast Highway, that I live about 3 miles from? Beautiful place. No, he has to move back to Pacific Palisades. He could never be satisfied. And to me, that was his real demon.
My favorite story was about when he went out on one of his nights out drinking, and he ran into M. Night Shyamalan, and they had a nice night, broke away from another group of friends, carried the party on. They just kept talking and talking. And eventually he said, "M. Night, I'd love to be in one of your movies. Let's talk. Let's get together." And they parted ways. And the next day, or he talked to somebody as he was leaving and said, that was, I got to talk to him, M. Night Shyamalan. And it was not him. It was some other fella who was an Indian. And he was just, he was out of it. So
that's like the guy at the breakfast place in St. Paul that you thought was me, and you started talking to him.
I did. I almost wanted to hug the man, but I didn't.
So what was your drug of choice that led you to mistake his identity for mine?
It was probably just coffee, my friend.
Okay. You don't drink coffee. You should tell people. You say it proudly. I don't drink coffee.
I don't
Because,
drink coffee, I don't smoke cigarettes, and I do tip a beer once in a while.
oh man, communism. While we're on the subject of nevers, if I hear that you or Kurt has said this to anyone and they come to me for confirmation of it, I'm going to pretend that I can't speak English.
Okay.
But I went back on one of my nevers, and I'm glad I am. And here's what happened. Somewhere along the line since we last spoke, I have sensed a rivalry between two camps in pop culture. One is the camp that surrounds the teeny bopper guru girlfriend of Travis Kelce. The other is a camp of a young woman named Olivia Rodrigo. And the precedent I sensed for this was the mods and rockers of the 60s, the Beatles versus the Stones, the Beatles versus the Dave Clark Five. So this is completely personal and confidential, confined only to your ears and Kurt's and those who view this podcast. I listened from start to finish to a new album called Guts from Olivia Rodrigo. I was immensely entertained, very impressed with her songwriting talent. She has this, I won't say it's unique. I mean, I've heard the same sandpapery kind of raspy sort of soprano from other singers, Regina Spektor, Ingrid Michaelson, Patty Donahue with The Waitresses 40 years ago. There's precedent for that vocal sound, but still, and I think also that the profanity is a little gratuitous in the songs, but this apparently is how her generation talks and sings. They identify with this, and so I vastly prefer her personality, flaws, and outlook on life, a more realistic one than the Fantasyland of the Eras Tour camp. So, just so you know, in the spirit of full disclosure, I listened to the latest Olivia Rodrigo. I'm not going back to the, didn't she explode onto the scene with a song called Driver's License?
She did, yes, she did.
Okay. I'm not going back to that.
You're
I'm
not
not
going
going
to
to pick
early
up any
stuff.
music in between. I'm not going to totally sell out. I'm just going to say that I was impressed by what I heard in my headphones because I downloaded the song on my Amazon queue, listened to it on the wireless headphones, and was very impressed with just the general production and the attitude behind the songs, and how I assumed the songs reflected the frustrations of people of that age range. So, bully for you, Olivia Rodrigo. Long may you reign.
So you would not even go back to her Disney Channel teeny bopper show back in the tens, maybe, yeah, the tens
I
of
mean, she came from the same kind of background as Britney Spears.
yeah, it was called a show called Bizaardvark. It was a duo, teen girl duo, her and an Asian American girl, and they were just adorable together. Very Laverne and Shirley like.
Okay.
So
I saw I don't know whether you've been out seeing any of the new movies lately, but we have stopped here for a week-long Albert Brooks film festival of our own making.
Okay.
An Albert Brooks movie per night in celebration of his new documentary on HBO hosted by Rob Reiner. But somewhere in there, we managed to get out to an actual movie theater with actual rude people seated behind us, as always happens. And it was The Holdovers. It was the new Alexander Payne movie with Paul Giamatti, who plays Paul Giamatti in this movie, the same kind of character that Paul Giamatti always plays. And the young man who plays the student, the one who's left over to spend the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays with Paul Giamatti at this small private school, is a real find. He's got a real collegiate face. He would look in place in all the college movies I've ever seen. Drive, he said, Paper Chase. I did not see Dead Poet Society, but I bet he would fit in there as well. He just has a very learned grad school kind of face. It was a masterwork of casting by Alexander Payne and whoever was the casting director. So I applaud that part of it. And the enormous black woman from Only Murders in the Building, she did a fine job as a grieving widow.
Oh, okay.
But you know, I don't know what gets into me sometimes. I found myself thinking as I'm watching this, and she's called upon to smoke in this role. And I have a thing about not only morbidly obese people, but morbidly obese smoking people. To me, it's like attaching a lighted cigarette to a fully inflated balloon. It's like there's going to be an explosion of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Pick one, you know, smoke or eat to excess and don't exercise. Pick one, not both.
Right.
And she apparently has certainly picked one, perhaps both. It was very convincing smoking she did in this movie. And I feel for the morbidly obese. I think they ought to do what they can to like Leinfelder proportions of prevention to save their lives, basically. But that aside, I would recommend The Holdovers. I don't understand the Oscar buzz. It's too quiet, too slow, too wandering a movie. I'm glad they were able to get out of the campus setting there because I was getting claustrophobic. I'll tell you the precedent for this, at least in my frame of reference, is the field trip in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where they got off the campus of the Looney Bin and they went on the boat and had a big time. Jack Nicholson, ran the show and so on. That's
Right.
what it reminded me of. It was like you were literally breathing fresh air once they got off campus, and all that effing snow, for God's sake. If I'd known there was that much snow in the movie, I wouldn't have gone. I would have gone
Oh,
next door. You know what? It just occurs to me, I would have gone next door to the most well-received movie of the year called Anatomy of a Fall,
oh yeah, I've heard that. It's good.
about a guy who, plummets to his death, and is his wife guilty of pushing him or not? And that's got a lot of snow in it. There's just no way to get away from snow. It's really
Can't get away from it.
annoying. No.
I recently we watched a mini series a series docuseries about This England. It was on BritBox, BBC. Have you heard of this? Yeah. The story of Boris Johnson during the COVID years. I didn't think it would be very good. I was fascinated by it.
The messed up hair guy?
Yeah. Kenneth Branagh plays him. Kenneth Branagh plays Boris Johnson. Fascinating. It's a strange individual, strange cat.
I had enough Boris Johnson during the actual Boris Johnson's reign.
Right.
So I don't need to see I would watch a Mapplethorpe doc, I would watch a Pasolini doc, but I don't want to see biopics on either, because I got to have the Matt Smith or whatever his name was from the early Crown episodes as Mapplethorpe and Willem Dafoe as Pasolini. I don't want to deal with that. I want to see a documentary with the actual guys in it. Now there is one on Max about Mapplethorpe called Look at the Pictures. Not one yet on Pasolini, but I'm hoping for one before I say goodbye to the world, because he's a fascinating guy too. There's nothing better than a great doc. And I just finished one today called, and look for it at a theater near you in the coming weeks and months, called Uncropped, about a famous pop culture photographer named James Hamilton, who palled around with the great and near great from the 60s and 70s on, and worked a lot for publications like the Village Voice and New York Observer, at all ad nauseum. I think you would enjoy Uncropped, because a photographer who worked in that era saw everything and everybody in the course of his jobs and travels.
I do remember you did a documentary back in the 80s called Cropped, about famous crop tops, some of your famous crop tops over the years.
I thought that was about circumcision, about cropping the tops of some of the
six of one, half a dozen of another.
So here's what was happening in the dream last night. Bill Buckley and I were speedboating on the Mississippi.
Wow.
And the water you could see clear to the bottom, just like it was Lake Tahoe. It wasn't a murky river like the Mississippi we know. And you could see these gargoyle-ish fish, menacing looking fish, beneath the water's surface, and it was one of those semi-dream, semi-nightmares you have to shake yourself out of and wake up and then having trouble get back to sleep.
I know, it's crazy.
But very few deceased celebrities are exhumed for dream purposes. I don't ever now occasionally one of my parents will show up in a dream, but other than that, no.
Has Nick Cage showed up in any of your dreams? I saw that in the preview for his new movie as a guy who shows up, an ordinary guy who shows up in people's dreams. He's always there. And so people start like harassing him for that reason. Isn't that crazy? Some of the stuff he does.
What was the last Nick Cage movie you saw? Because I would have to go back to the
Pig.
Leaving Las Vegas. Las Vegas.
I saw Pig. It was about a guy. It wasn't bad, but I didn't get it how it was so popular, because I think it was during COVID times and there was nothing else out there to watch. So people were watching bad movies.
Did I see the movie where he satirizes himself? Which is that I forget the title of it, but it's
he does play himself, doesn't he?
The title leads you to believe that he doesn't take himself that seriously.
Right.
His career has become like the guy who does the action movies, the guy from 300. He does like White House Down, and there's always a crisis in the White House or on an airplane or something like that. I forget his name.
Not Liam Neeson? No.
I don't know why I blank on the guy's name. I saw him at the Parker Palm Springs pool, rounding up the daily threesome there, and just generally taking the air out of the room, and it was an open air situation, to give you some idea of the impact he had among
Gerard Butler.
Exactly, that's exactly right. None of his movies are made to be artistic successes at all. It's all about action movie money making.
Yeah,
and 6 of one, half dozen of the other, different strokes, blah blah blah.
The name of the movie, the name of Nick Cage's movie where he plays himself, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talents.
Right. That sounds like the kind of self-spoof I might enjoy. So I think I might try that. I subscribe to a weekly newsletter, comes out on Thursdays. I received one today from Serie A, the Italian Football League. And there was a picture in there of who's the actor you just named?
Gerard Butler?
Gerard Butler attended the Roma derby between AC Roma and Lazio, whatever the other team who lives in that is stationed in Rome plays, and he showed up to watch the derby, similar to Keith Richards and Mick Jagger showed up to watch the most recent El Clasico. These guys love soccer for some reason. Anyway, he posed with his jersey of one of the teams. I don't know, but these guys are everywhere now. What is it about? I'm not going to say her name. Travis Kelce's girlfriend. They were spotted in Argentina.
Yeah, she had a big concert series out there.
Who has time to go to frickin' Argentina? Is that what is needed to spice up one's relationship? I don't know. I think this weekend I'll go fuck her in Argentina. What is that about?
I don't know. It's amazing down there. They had
Was it a bye week? Is that how he could do it? Did they have a bye week? How do you go to Argentina and make it back for practice, or make it back for?
These millionaires have private planes. They can jaunt anywhere they want to in the world. You know that.
Yeah. All right.
It was weird. I was reading a lot about that whole concert series. People were waiting in tents to get into 5 months before the concert, in tents, because there's no assigned seating. So they just basically rush into the stadium it's just anarchy out there.
I wonder if what their reaction would be if they were told that there's precedent for this, and it's called deadheads.
Yeah.
I saw a few of them at Bloomington's Met Center way back in the day, and the restrooms were just chaos. They were standing on the sinks, peeing down into the sinks. The behavior was, subterranean. on the Richter scale, and I just hope these people are minding their P's and Q's. Otherwise, I just see them as lifeless, as nothing powering their own life but adoration of this one person. What could you be doing to have religion formed around you? It's one thing to be a bartender at Boca Chica and make the world's best $5 margarita, to the point that I proposed to the guy, not marriage, but I proposed to the guy that we form a cult around him. But music, songs, really? How's that possible? What's
You're
happened
right.
to us?
You're right.
Another question I had for you that I was saving for today, because we kind of had to suspend the rules for last week, devoted to Jim Leinfelder's weight loss techniques, is do you recall the anecdote from my New York trip where the guy got on the elevator on the ground floor with the Great Dane and got into arguments with my girlfriend about Great Danes 17 floors later until he finally got off?
Right. You told her not to
Elevator.
talk to him, but she did anyway.
My question is this. If I wanted to, I don't know whether you send postcards anymore, but there are still postcards out there to send.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, everybody can see a postcard as it goes through the mail. You can pick up somebody's postcard and read it.
Yeah.
And, so usually people kind of weigh their words when they write a postcard because they know it could be read by strangers, right? Is it conceivable to you that a postcard sent to Great Dane guy, 17th floor, the Pierre, Etage Hotel, New York City, I forget the zip, could be so vile and so threatening, so grotesquely profane as to invite investigation, apprehension, and prosecution? You think that's possible? That someone would receive or observe as it goes through the mail system the content of a threatening postcard and then turn it over to the feds, and then they would trace it to me, and I would be in hot water?
I can't even imagine that. I mean, but there are crazy people out there. I suppose you could be.
I don't think it's necessarily crazy. I was really, even to this day, I'm still annoyed by his attitude. He
Oh
was
yeah.
such a fluffy, obvious queen with his bow tie and his
Queen.
precious Great Dane. I think I may have met his cousin yesterday in a Larry David kind of incident in the Cross Creek area of Malibu, where I was just going to the library to return some books, and I'm stopped at the four-way stop,
Mm-hmm.
and because of some California style stupid situationing of vehicles at other positions in the intersection, I'm stopped and I'm waiting. Okay. And then just as I figure it's my turn to go, I release the brake, producing a kind of lurch, not a driveway, but just a lurch into a man and his two status dogs.
Oh.
I apologized from inside the car. Hi, sorry, my bad. And I would have apologized to him again outside the car because he was doing this. He was chirping at me. It wasn't enough that I apologized to him from inside the car. This is so Larry David. Larry David would be the driver.
Yep.
He would think things were okay as long as he apologized, right?
Yeah.
But then when the guy chirps back at him, that's when Larry takes it personally, gets out of his car, and then people get out of their cars from other positions in the intersection. And before you know it, you've got a Pier 6 brouhaha with
Yeah.
people surrounding the combatants. Also avoidable if the guy with the two status dogs would just have, been a little more careful, placing himself in front of a car that one would think the owner has deep pockets and would be willing to shell out a bunch of money in personal injury litigation if I actually hit him, which I did not.
No,
That's another part of it that is not getting enough publicity here. I didn't hit it. I merely started to drive through the intersection, but stopped when I saw him. That's when he turned to me as he was walking by with the dogs and then running his mouth. I allowed it to happen. I let it go. I continued with my day. I don't think Larry David would have done that. I think that may be a scene for an upcoming episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I think it did happen. There was one where his girlfriend at the time was driving his car, almost ran into a guy with a dog. And later on in the show, same guy sees Larry now driving his car and yells at him. And he's surprised that he's being yelled at. So yeah.
How do you think Larry David is going to handle the TV ex-wife, real life husband situation in the coming season?
Oh, you mean the
RFK Jr.
Cheryl Hines?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. She's in the past few seasons she's been dating Ted Danson, so I don't know how that'll play into it, but there's something there.
Today on my handicapping show on Sportsnet LA called Follow the Money from the Circa downtown in Las Vegas, one of the hosts' real bugaboos, taboos, drives him nuts, is people who take their shoes and socks off on planes.
Oh.
So they have a candid still photography of a man coming down the aisle in a commercial aircraft with his shoes and socks off. And the other host says to him, "You know who that is, don't you?" He says, "No, who is it?" He goes, "That's RFK Jr."
Wow.
And so there's a picture out there of it happening. And so after they've discussed this for a little bit, one of the hosts says, "We don't do politics on this show, but I don't vote for people who do that."
No.
And this is the anti-vax champion. This guy apparently has no concessions toward a healthy lifestyle whatsoever. I don't know what caused his voice to sound as strained as it does. I wonder if it's some sort of like permanent infection or something, because one of the hosts speculated today in his handicapping show that you can't walk to a commercial airliner bathroom and back to your seat without getting urine on your feet.
Oh my God.
And that's what RFK Jr., who would be your president, did in full view of everyone and of someone with a camera.
Seems like a hillbilly to me, not Camelot.
This is what it's come to. And you put that together with Joe Manchin running from the middle on the no labels ticket, and you've got chaos.
Right.
I would suggest that we all start putting out feelers. Well, what do you think my house is worth? How fast do you think I could get out of it?
No, yeah.
If worst came to worst in November of next year.
Yeah, you're starting to lean that way.
Would you recommend Canada or Mexico?
See?
What's your view of Costa Rica? It could happen.
Oh, you were pretty adamant, like, oh, Kel, it can't happen. Last time maybe 6 months ago? And I think you're coming around to my side.
Well, here's the reason why. I saw Trump as being in prison, a guilty verdict for many of 5 cases.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the ruling is if you're found guilty before or after you're elected president. Supposedly, the presidency shields you from punishment because you can pardon yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's banking on. That's what this whole candidacy is all about.
Yep.
It's not about retribution. It's certainly not about policy or improving people's lives. It's about staying out of jail.
Yeah. Well, maybe a little retribution.
Another question I have for you.
Are you seeing this fight on the Argentina game? It's something else. Somebody pushed Messi down and now they're fighting. Anyway.
Oh, that's hard to believe that South Americans could get together and not get along. That's shocking. Unfortunately, there's no hot Latin blood anywhere on the field, is there?
Nope.
I think you'd enjoy the Italian games. They get pretty riled up too.
Is that your favorite league?
Is
Italy your favorite league?
They're very emotional, these people. It's always this. Come on, the flag. Give me a card. That kind
I love the finger wag. That's one of my.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Offside. Oh no, it wasn't offside at all. Speaking of sports, is it possible that the job of head football coach with an American college or university could be remote work, could be work from home, especially on game days? Because I know of a Division I Power 5 school who played its game last weekend without its head coach. And I have a feeling that he was at home with his feet propped up and his headphone on, somehow technologically connected to the coach Stephen Fetchit on the field with all the instructions to all the players and the other coordinators, and they win the game. Is it possible that a college football coach should not have to show up at a stadium on game days if he doesn't want to?
I think anything's possible. How do we know he wasn't in the front row? Did they bar him from the stadium?
He couldn't attend. He's been banned on game days for I know that's a soccer term. He's been expelled,
right.
whatever the term is.
No, that's right.
For the rest of the regular season, pending tomorrow's appeal, which he is going to attend, and they'll argue both sides of it. But to me, this proved that the head coach doesn't have to be there for your team to win.
Not at all. I think I just don't understand. What do you think the difference is if they didn't have this whole fiasco of putting somebody in the stands to steal signs? Do you think they'd still have an unbeaten record, or do you think they would actually be mortal, Michigan? You think this really would make that much of a difference?
We're not going to find that out against Maryland.
No.
You will find it out against Ohio State.
Okay.
Everybody tells me Michigan hasn't played anybody. Well, you know why? Because they're in the Big Ten. There isn't anybody in the Big Ten except for Michigan and Ohio State. That's it.
You're right.
If they had to play Pac-10 schools, wait till next year, by the way.
Oh.
When the Big Ten schools who are averse, who are allergic to scoring,
right,
get to play your wide open USC and Oregon and UCLA offenses.
Bloodbath.
Pity the fool.
It's like this was anybody, all of those other whatever. How many teams are in the Big Ten right now? 12, 14? Anyway, that's the last time any of those teams are going to have a chance at any type of national championship or anything like that. It's crazy.
I'll tell you who I'm rooting for, and I would not have said this in previous decades because I did not graduate from that school. One of my brothers-in-law did. This is the brother-in-law that I bought the futures ticket for his alma mater at 7-1.
Mm-hmm.
He can cash a ticket for $400 if his alma mater wins the national championship. So I'm rooting for the University of Texas.
I'm too.
Okay.
They lost their running back though for the season. That kind of hurts.
That's true. That's never a good sign. But stranger things have happened. I always tell people, I saw Buster Douglas beat the crap out of Mike Tyson in Tokyo when I was about 3 years old. So I know for a fact it can happen. Upsets are forever, right?
Well, and look at the Vikings with Dobbs. I mean, who can expect that? That's crazy too. I don't know.
2 minutes left in the podcast. Let's leave the folks on an up note. And as kind of equal time for what was said about colonoscopy. About what was said about colonoscopies last weekend during the Leinfelder Wagovi journey discussion. Mm-hmm. My sister in Texas, my middle child's sister, tells me that there have been such advances in the colonoscopy that once you get past the laxative the day before, it is a piece of cake. You're just not allowed to eat a piece of cake before you undergo this. And if you want to be semi-sedated in order to see the camera as it's run through the tunnels of your system, you can. You're allowed to. Otherwise, she says, it's the best sleep she's ever had.
Right.
So I was wrong. I thought people were still drinking barium to line their stomachs and going through all sorts of discomfort days in advance of colonoscopy.
That's
According
not true.
to her words were piece of cake. No longer what I overheard years ago. I overheard two guys talking about one of their colonoscopies. The guy says, I think I've already told you this. He says, you will see God.
Yeah.
But apparently those days are over. And it's just like advances in dentistry, where they can rub something on your gum that deadens it, or just advances. Generally, there was the full eyeball transplant the other day. There's been a full lung transplant in recent weeks. Advances all over the place, colonoscopy no exception. So I think we should take heart in that there are doctors and researchers out there working as we run our mouths today, working to make our lives better. So I think we should be thankful for them.
So does that mean you're going to get one?
God, no. Are you kidding me? You must be out of your mind. Now, the reason my sister did was because polyps, so-called polyps. I
That's a
don't know
fun
whether
word
they
to
were
say. Polyp.
malignant or benign, but polyps were spotted in my mother's in that area of my mother, and so my sister thought she should probably have one in the event that it ran in the family. It doesn't. Colon cancer does not run in our family. Otherwise, I would have to get one. But as it is, I just don't feel the need. I don't. I'm not into discomfort now.
Oh no.
Between the ages of 18 and 68, there were all kinds of discomfort that you had to put up with to provide for a family, to advance professionally, to keep, the government off your back at tax time. I'm not into discomfort anymore.
That's why you were never into S&M, right? Because the discomfort, you just didn't care for that.
We'll tackle that part of it next week. That's part of the up note that we're ending on. We're going to tantrically delay the subject of discomfort for next week. And we wish all of you a fantastic weekend. Now, next Thursday, as we know, is Thanksgiving. Discuss among yourselves whether you want to do another podcast, let's say on the day before Thanksgiving, or whatever your schedules will accommodate. Get back to me and we'll get the word out to the folks.
Sounds good. Let's talk.
In the meantime, we hope everyone has enjoyed the miscellaneous item edition of the Bob and Kel CleverCast for the week of 11/16/23, and so long for now.
Bye.